Hey everybody, my name is Bo Sanders. I'm the pastor here at Vermont Hills Church, and I am excited about the month of October when it comes to our worship gatherings. So as many of you know, we're trying something pretty innovative. We have taken sort of the traditional liturgical mainline expression, and we've spliced in some newer elements. And so both by meeting in the round and then breaking up into our conversation groups from time to time, we've become an interactive church. And so we are conversational in our approach. Even the way that I preach is conversational, opening for questions and comments and sort of in dialogue. We're an innovation station. I call us the laboratory because we're trying. And so I know that many people are watching what we do, and I appreciate the comments and the notes that I get through emails of churches around the country that are trying different things. And so I'm excited to be a part of this, whether you call it fresh expressions or an emergent spirituality. I just love it. And so I wanted to tell you what we're doing in October because I'm really excited about it. So just a little background, like in the summers, we scale back the order of worship because the weather around here is amazing. And so we actually move our service to 10 a.m. during the summers, and we scale back the gathering and streamline it a bit so that people can get out and have their Sunday afternoons, and that works really great. We move back to 10:30 in the fall, and we do that in the fall and spring. And in September, we add some new layers back into the gathering, so it gets probably 5 or 10 minutes longer, and we add back in some traditional elements. But come October, we have a couple things that prompt us to try and layer it even more. The first is we have this big group that travels in September, and so like this year they were in the maritime provinces of Canada. Next year they're going to Africa, but many of them are in the choir, and so the choir doesn't start singing for Kickoff Sunday in September. They actually start in October. And so this week, October 6th, is World Communion Sunday, and we're doing the Great Thanksgiving, this big traditional, it's very elaborate celebration. I'm going to be wearing an alb and stole, and so it'll visually, it will look and feel a little different. And it's that call and response thing of lift up your hearts, and then people say, we lift them up to the Lord. It's sort of cool. We've actually got some singing parts that we've brought in that we actually practiced last week so that people can really enter in a spirit of worship during that time. And so it's not too alien or foreign to them. But the choir is back, and so they will be singing during the offering. But we've also found these amazing videos from the work of the people that are like visual liturgies, they're called. And so we've added that back in. So I just wanted to walk you through one of our gatherings. We envision this hour roughly together in sort of 3 acts. And so in the first act, it's actually very traditional. So we print out this order of worship. It sort of looks like a menu, and that is sitting on the coffee tables around the worship space. And so if people want to know sort of what's coming up, they can always check in with this. But it starts with a prelude, just a simple prelude, and then a welcome. Then we have a centering song as we prepare our hearts and minds for worship, just something to draw us into the space. We have these beautiful stained glass windows, and so it just allows people to exhale the week, to breathe in the new possibility that is alive in God's Spirit. Then there's a call to worship, that's call and response. We have a morning prayer, and that's scripted, and the liturgist reads that. Then we always sing a hymn to start. It's sort of us acknowledging the tradition that we come from, so we always start with a hymn. And by the way, we don't put all of our worship songs together in sort of a group. We punctuate the gathering with them, and so they're spaced out. So some people aren't really into singing, like that's not the main thing, because a lot of people don't sing during the week, and like going to church service is like maybe the only time during the week that they sing. And so we don't have a block of like 5 or 6 songs that I know some people really enjoy that, but we use music to sort of punctuate the gathering and express different parts that match the theme. Then we do the passing of the peace, and that's when it's like the meet and greet where you shake hands, but that's when you can refill your tea and coffee, and that's when our kids go out with that week's storyteller. We have a rotation of 5 storytellers that prepare a lesson for the kids, and so they go out. We have this couch area out in the entryway, and they have a little time for them. We used to take up the Pennies from Heaven offering during that, but now we've moved it down so that the children can help us collect the Pennies from Heaven offering there. And that is for us. So we do 2 offerings. The first one is just loose change and small bills, and it supports this ministry that we love called Neighborhood House that helps families in need. That also is a ministry that the produce from our community garden, because we depaved part of our parking lot a number of years ago, and there's produce for people goes to Neighborhood House. So it's a whole ecosystem. I love that ministry. And then we have the announcements just to get everybody on the same page and make sure that they know about upcoming things they can plug into. Then we sing another song. And so the interesting thing about our middle song is that we have a rotation of 5 songs, and depending on which week of the month it is, so we always sing the same song on the first Sunday. The second Sunday has its own song, Come and Find the Quiet Center. We sing the doxology on the third Sunday. Do All the Good You Can, which is a good Wesleyan song because we're Methodist, on the 4th Sunday. And then anytime there's a 5th Sunday, we sing the song called For Everyone Born, A Seat at the Table. It's like my favorite song in the world. Then we have the prayers of the people, and that is crafted by our prayer team and read by our prayer team based on the emails that people have sent in during the week or have written down that they need. So that's a really sort of an intimate and really specific prayer, not generic like the opening prayer. Then we have a scripture, and then I preach my sermon or homily, present an idea, and right now we're going through the Gospel of Luke, so that's forming our themes. Then these videos that I talked about, something that gets us ready. And so like this week, it's a communion video about how important it is to be at the table and how everyone at the table is welcome. So that'll be the video that follows that. By the way, the reason I love these videos so much is because they bring in a level of production that we can't do as a small church. We just don't have the technology or like the professional musicians that can pull off that, but it allows us to import something that is really deeply meaningful. And so I really love these videos. I hope that you'll check them out. Then we take up the offering after that. And then, so to break down the first third of our service is very traditional. If you came and visited, it would feel like any mainline service. That middle section is housed usually around the sermon and allows me to present the idea that we're probably going to talk about in the third of the sections of the gathering. So then we go to the table. And this is where it gets sort of tricky, is that the first week of the month is always the communion table. But in the other weeks of the month, we are either break up in around these coffee tables. We have a dozen coffee tables around the gathering, and so people break up into smaller groups and talk either about the sermon or the topic that day. But sometimes, especially if we have somebody who represents a ministry, like Habitat for Humanity was last week, our backpack ministry was the week before, we have Bethlehem House of Bread that we're going into a partnership with, Family Promise, who we're thinking about converting our youth room, what used to be our youth room, to a place that families in transition can stay. And so if there's a ministry partner, they'll come to the table and tell us about that ministry. Or sometimes I invite somebody to come to the table and we dialogue about the sermon or the idea that day. And so at the table can mean 3 things: communion table, coffee tables, or the tall table, depending on what the gathering needs. Then we have a closing song and the benediction. So it takes about an hour and 5 minutes. We get a lot done in that time. And by layering worship in this way, people who have different learning styles or different connection points. So like, for instance, during this week of communion, people can both come forward to receive communion. There's a baptismal font at the back that they can go and remember their baptism. We converted what used to be the communion rail for prayer candles, so they can go and light a candle and let the candle lift their prayer. So there's a lot of different modalities, if you want, for learning styles. And so there's all of that is interactive, and so they can listen to an idea, they get to talk with other people about it, they get to go to different stations and participate in worship. We sing. There's some parts that are passive, there's some parts that are active. We have videos. There's all sorts of ways so that people connect. And I know that for every person, there's probably something they really love in each gathering. They have a favorite thing. And then there's also a least favorite thing. And so sort of our joke is that in this gathering, because we've layered it the way we have, there's always going to be something you love and want more of, and there's always going to be something that you could do without. So that is how we layer worship. I think that it really works. You can do this in a rural or urban or suburban context. You can do it as a small or large gathering for worship. And I think you can do it if you're mainline or evangelical or even charismatic, that there is a way to layer worship so that people connect at multiple different layers and in different ways for their embodiment, the actual enacting of what we're talking about, so that they are engaged. And that's why I love interactive church so much. I would love to know your thoughts, or maybe how you've seen it done well, or maybe something that you're experimenting with. Let me know, and I will talk to you soon.